Who facilitated the sale of the bonds?
Morgan Stanley. We had brought the team to, last month, we had done a competitive process to select a team, and Morgan Stanley was the lead manager for that. So any questions, and if you have if you take a look at the...
One quick question, Beth, and hopefully you know this. What was the driving force behind the federal government implementing the subsidy?
Yeah, it was sort of a gift, really. It was to help subsidize capital investment in governmental projects. So I think the feeling among the issuers in Wall Street is that they might not have realized how big a subsidy, generous it was being, and how many issuers were going to take advantage of it.
Was it not also aimed at trying to be able to loosen the credit markets, not just interest rates, but actually
Yes.
have available dollars?
Yes, because what it allows us to do is access a different investor base. Typically, our buyers want tax-exempt income. This allowed us to sell bonds to taxable investors, and we are a tremendous credit. I mean, a AAA municipality has a broader investor base than even a AAA corporate name. So it was both of those, but their original estimates of the amount of their subsidy were much lower than what they're actually going to be doing. That's a good question. So now I will turn, as I always do, unless there are any other questions. I was going to encourage you to take a look at the official statement. It is our face to the world, the investment world, of a summary of our financial statements, and it's written in there's more detail and different emphasis than simply what's in our financial statements. Both are public documents. So if next month you have any questions or any time, please let me know.
I will interrupt long enough to say, you think of the official statements and you say, yeah, if I want to go to sleep quickly, I'll kind of go pick it up. What they are surprising, and I'd ask you each to glance through it. You will find lots of reference material that's in there because we have to give a lot of history and a lot of other things, and it's an incredibly convenient place to be able to go for just some of the basic factual stuff. And it's not that it's all that stimulating, but I really do want to urge you to think that it's not just this boring financial document. It really has a lot of very information that you will find, if you kind of glance at it, you'll want to use it when you're just, people are asking you about stuff, whether it's the local economy or other things. It's a wealth of information.
I should also note that when we were meeting with the rating agencies, which is there's a lot of effort and thought that goes into that. Moody's came to visit us here, and with Neil's team, we took them on a tour of the system. We presented a lot of the information that Eric presented, and is a large part of the reason. They're not just looking at our financials, they're looking at our role in the community and our long-term sustainability. It's part of the reason for the high ratings. So now I'd like to turn to the economic overview, as I do every month, and start with some national data to lead into where we are. There was a study by the Rockefeller Institute this month on national data on tax collections at the state level, and showed a record-setting decline in the second quarter of 2009. Almost every state reported a drop in total tax revenue, and the average rate of decline was 16%. It's the biggest since 1962. And early third quarter data isn't looking good. This is national data. And following what national economists, the president's advisors, congressional advisors, Federal Reserve governors, and the state economists are saying, there seems to be a consensus that employment and wages are likely to recover more slowly than any other measure of production, which is not surprising and is fairly typical of a recession. I think there's a feeling that maybe the rapid pace of job destruction is over, but rehiring is going to be slow, and unemployment likely to be around for a while. Lynn is nodding. So I mentioned the national data because it is consistent with what we're seeing here. Unemployment rates in our three counties remain high, from 11.2% in Multnomah, 10.7 in Clackamas, 10.1 in Washington. So all of us are still above 10%. The state is at 11.5%. We have dropped down to being the sixth highest unemployment rate. We were number 2 for a long time. So unfortunately, other states have moved ahead of us. But there is some positive movement in the actual number of jobs in the counties. Both Clackamas lost 700 jobs, but Multnomah County gained jobs and Washington County gained jobs. Now the numbers are very small, 100, 500, 1,000 jobs, but I think it's additional evidence that maybe we're stabilizing, albeit at a very low level. We are 55,000 jobs less in the three counties than 1 year ago. So if this is where we stabilize, we're going to be building back from a much lower base. So this does have, as we know, negative implications for TriMet, both passenger revenues and tax revenues. Looking at the financials, you'll see passenger revenue is below budget by about 9%. Our budget assumed a growth of about 8.5% in passenger revenue. We assumed no growth in red line, blue line, or green line ridership. Assumed the growth Fred talked about on the green line, and that has been slightly less than anticipated. And when we look at where the percentage decline in passenger revenue comes from, the biggest decline has been in pass revenue, so employer passes and more riders buying one ticket at a time or a book of tickets rather than a pass. Payroll taxes are also below estimates, but recall that when I look at receipts that we get from Department of Revenue, there's a lag in those receipts. So in August, we got money based on earnings in April, May, and June. And these were lower than they were in prior years at the same time, despite the fact that the tax rate is higher. So next month, we'll see actual receipts reflecting the first quarter of our fiscal year, and we'll have more concrete information about what we're actually receiving for this fiscal year. Expenses are also running under budget. We're watching it really carefully, talking with managers. But I'll caution, I looked at a few items where we were, noticeably under budget, talked to the managers, and it's really, they don't expect that to be a year-long trend, maybe a little bit, but it's a timing issue. It's hard to draw too many conclusions with 3 months, but rest assured we're watching it very carefully. But the Accessible Transportation Program is continuing to show costs significantly under budget. Costs for direct service providers in all three counties are, and for contracted transportation are less than expected. So this is in part due to lower employment, but on a positive note, it's partially explained by the fact that there's more efficient use of resources and improved scheduling, so that's good news. I'll finish up with the investment portfolio. In the Finance Committee this morning, we discussed about a revised and updated investment policy. No fundamental changes to the policy, but updating, incorporating some best practices, because Oregon statutes require that if we have investments longer than 18 months, we submit our policy to the Oregon Short-Term Fund Board for review. So the Finance Committee has given us the go-ahead to submit that. When the Short-Term Fund approves that, we will bring it back to the full board for your approval. And our investments this month reflect lower amounts in our cash account as we use funds to make the pension fund payments. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions about? I think you're doing an excellent job. It's really good.
Great. Excellent.
Thank you.
Thanks.